My mother's originally from the Philippines, and my dad's Canadian. He's actually from Thunder Bay, but yeah, he was raised in the Jewish faith. So I had like Christian and Jewish teachings when I was growing up. Up until the age of 7, it was pretty good. It was the earliest memories that I have are actually when I was a year and a half or 2 that I've told my parents my memories. And they said, well, that only that happened around 1 year or 2. 2 or 3, I think. No, 1 and almost. And so those are the earliest memories I have. And I always remember being affected of when my mother would leave. My adoptive mother would leave, and I had a younger sister later on, and we moved when I was 5 to Utrimo, which is a beautiful, beautiful little community. And then when I was 7, that's when my life changed. My grandparents moved in. My maternal grandparents moved in. And my uncle as well. I don't think I ever understood why they chose me, my grandfather and my uncle, but I don't understand why to this day. Maybe because I was adopted and I didn't have bloodline or blood ties with me. But for 9 years, my grandfather he abused me sexually for 9 years, and my uncle was not for that long, but I was scared because I didn't want it to happen to my sister and my cousins. And during that period of time, I felt like I was two people in my family. You know, I was on the outside. I was growing up, trying to do good in school. I was going to Sacred Heart at the time. I was I wasn't very good at school, but I tried. Both my parents are professors, so I grew up with the notion that I would just have an education, a university education, just because it was always around me. So that was like the daytime, like my my persona. And I played cello from the time I was 3. I had lessons, and we lived in China for a year, and that was amazing because I lived in Beijing for a year. But it was not, people think that it's because I got to travel, but it's because I was away from them for a year. I was so free. For the first time in years, I was free. And then I would go back, and it was hell again. And then, but I think that's where I learned how to pretend everything was okay. And when I told my mother when it happened, I was 16. At first, she didn't believe me. She said, well, how could it have happened? I was always there, or something along those lines. I knew I was Eskimo. In the 70s, it was Eskimo, and I knew I was adopted. And they never hid that from me. They never hid that from me. But neither did they try to bring me closer to my community. It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't the top of their priorities for me. I just really wanted to belong wherever I went. I tried my best to morph into the people that are around me. So if I was around like my Jewish family, then I would learn the prayers. And if I was around like my Filipino family, I went so far as to learn how to do like some Filipino dishes, you know. And I was a very emotional kid. I was a very very emotional kid, and my parents were very cerebral. And it was very hard for me to express myself because it was always cut short. And I remember at 16, I asked my parents to look for my birth family. And I think I'm still angry about that because their answer was, well, it's better for you to meet adult on adult and not child on at your age. It's better for you to, and that just closed it. They didn't pursue it anymore. They didn't help me. They didn't support me. At that time, they had made a decision that they didn't think that I was old enough or mature enough. And later on, I would find out that summer that I wanted to find my family was the summer that my mother passed. And I think that had my mother passed at any other time, I probably wouldn't be so angry. But I'm furious. It was like something. It's like something was pulling me to her, like, because I guess she was sick, or I don't know. But there was like this pull inside of me that wanted to find her that year. It was like I had almost like an urgency. I remember almost being frantic, trying to find out and trying to ask my parents, and they just shut me down. And that was the year that my mother died. And I think that was the first time that I was suicidal, actually. Really. Now I come to think of it. It was the first time. I remember at one point I had boxed my stuff in boxes, and I named my boxes. And no one knew about it. And I actually managed to unpack all the boxes before anyone found out that I was suicidal. But I remember there was so much pain from my abuse to not fitting in to all of it. Just all of it and all of it. And I just wanted my mother so much. And they didn't let me go see her or try to find her. And then when I found out later that she had passed that year, there was like a heavy stone of resentment that just settled at the pit of my stomach that I kind of pushed away. And I don't think about it. I don't talk about it because it's heavy. Some people are like, well, how was it growing up? I'm like, oh, it was good. I got to travel. Because people don't want to hear either, you know, they just want to hear the good parts for the most time. I always wanted to know. I would always look at other Native people. And there was this guy, his name was Jonas. And I remember when I was like 16 or 17 or something, someone came to me and said, "Oh, you have to meet this guy Jonas." And we had mutual friends. We ended up having mutual friends, and they would tell him, "You have to meet this my friend Nina. You guys look so much alike." And we were both adopted. So, and we were both super tall. Like he's taller than me. He's like this big guy, and we met at this. They have these carnivals that they hold in stationnement in parkings, where they hold like traveling circuses or amusement parks. And I remember I was so nervous. It was at Cavendish Mall when there was still that huge parking lot, and I was like, "Oh my God, imagine if we related." And I remember I was still living at home, and I was like, I didn't even tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody that I was meeting him, and my friends, our mutual friends, were so excited that we were gonna meet, and so we met, and it was the first glimpse into what could happen. And when we met, it's just eerie because we both looked at each other and we both saw resemblances, and we've been brother and sister ever since. Like, we don't talk very often, but if we see each other or on Facebook, we'll be like, hey brother, hey sister, and but he's my first contact, like first kind of. And then when I was 22, I started searching, and then in '96, I was in Toronto, and there was this woman named Tina McNeil, and she was from Fort Smith. And I was at the Toronto for the National Association of Friendship Center AGM. And I knew that there was somebody from Fort Smith Friendship Center because I knew from doing research that they had a Friendship Center representative coming down. So I was like, oh my goodness, I was nervous. And we had met previously the year before, but I didn't ask her anything. I was just like, you're from Fort Smith? That's great, bye. That was pretty much what happened. And that the next year was in Toronto. And I went up to her and I was like, "Hi, Tina, you remember me?" She's like, "Of course I remember you." And she said, "Well, dear," and I remember we were in the entrance of the lobby. I don't know why she told me there. Anyways, she said, "Well, I know your father, and I know who your brother is." And it was like the world stood still, and everybody disappeared. It was like my ears deafened because I was just looking at her, and I was just seeing her face, and nothing else. And then I had to sit down on the floor because I was so overwhelmed, and I had no strength. It was like someone had hit me with a truck. So I stood up after a while, and I leaned against the column, and she said, "Well, do you want to speak to your father?" I was just like, "Okay." Now? She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, sure." So we went up to the room, and I remember she was dialing the phone, and I was like facing her, and she's like, "Hey," and she's like, "Hey George, I got somebody here for you." I could hear him. He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Who's that?" He's like, "I have your daughter with me." And I remember just taking the phone. I was like, "Hi." He's like, "Hi, my girl." "Hi, Dad." He's like, "Is this my girl?" I said, "Yeah." And I started crying. And he was crying on the phone. Sorry. I was 23. I was 23 when I first talked to my birth father. His name was George Hermelian. And that same time around, I found out that my birth mother had passed before I could meet her. And then I found out that my brother Eric was the oldest, and that was the only two people that I knew. And then I found out my sister, but my father was the first one. And like 3 months, 3 months later, both my birth father and my adoptive father, they both helped me go up to Fort Smith for the first time. And I remember when I told my parents that I had found my father. I felt so many things. I remember feeling scared that I would hurt them in your face because they had tried to stop me. They had stopped me when I was 16. So I was like, you can't stop me. You can't stop this. You can't. You had no right to stop me from seeing my family. You had no right. You had no right. You had no right. I met my sister, and I met my brother Eric in '98. He's tall, holy cow. And that's another thing. Every time I met besides my sister, all my aunties and uncles are like 5'10", 6', 6'2". I finally felt average height because I always felt like a giant in my family. I always feel like on top of the physical height-wise, it just made it so much more obvious that I wasn't one of them. But I met my brother Eric for the first time out in BC, and I was 25. And I had rented a bed and breakfast because I didn't know, right? I didn't know what was our relationship was going to be like. And I met him, and he just got right pissed off at me. He's like, "What are you doing renting a B&B? You're supposed to be staying with me." So he got a car, a friend's car. They came and picked my stuff up at the B&B, and I just spent like 4 or 5 days with him. And we were stuck together. And I remember we were on the road. We were going to São Paulo, Shishwa Paulo, I think it's called or something. And on the road, and we were at someone's house, and there was like a couple of bedrooms, and there was one bed there was a single bed, and he's like, "You take that." I said, "Okay." And there was other beds, and his friend was like, "Well, where do you want to stay?" He's like, "Right next to my sister." So he slept on the floor, and I just Like, for the first time in my life, there was a man in my life that didn't want anything from me. Nothing. He wanted absolutely nothing from me. I was enough. I was enough, and he wanted to protect me. And I didn't have to do anything for him. Just by simply being was enough. Just by simply being born his younger sister, he was already protective of me. So he slept next to me. And he kept asking, he's like, "Sister, are you okay? You're okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good." I was just so blown away. Someone he just met, he didn't have to. I would have learned how to hunt, and which is true. My mother lived off the land, and my family is a big family. My mother comes from a family of 22 up in Inuvik, Klavik, Tiatuk, Paula, like they're all, and they just live off the land to hunt. And but there's this connection when I watch other people, elders or other people who have grown up surrounded by their community and just having powwow around them, or ceremony, or the longhouse, or the sweat lodge, or whatever ceremonies that that nation, that their community has. There's a sense of groundness, no matter what's going on in their life, that they have that connection. And it's like, I was connected to my mother through my umbilical cord, and I was born and they cut that. And it's like the government came in and cut the umbilical cord to my community. Like, they just cut that connection off, and that natural belonging, and just not seeing myself and other people, that was just cut off. And so I didn't thrive the way I should have thrived, I think. And there's this, no matter how many times I do ceremony, no matter if I'm taught drum songs or, language, I speak a little bit of my language. I've been doing throat singing for 20 years. And I have to say, those are the only times when I throat sing, whether it's on stage or in my house, or I can feel my mother. I can feel her so much, like the sounds that I make and the laughter and the tradition. And it's one of the few moments where I feel them around me, like all my ancestors and all the women that sang before me, and all their knowledge and all their wisdom, and all the fighting that they had to do, and all the hardships and the starvation and the hard times and the laughter and the children. And I feel them all around me when I'm throat singing, all the time, all the time, all the time. But the language and the ceremonies and community, that's one of the biggest things that was affected. So now, even if I go to the Friendship Center, if I go to different Native things, it's almost like I feel they can tell that I'm white. I feel white. It's weird. I feel white. I feel like I forget that I look the way I look, and I look typically like, Native or Inuit, but I think it's just this feeling inside me that I always feel like they can tell. It just doesn't. There's no, like, you can give me $25 million. You can get me a new house. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get that connection back. The work that we'll do, like all the dotties and all the scoop bees and all of us residents, all of it, the work that we do, and it takes resources, and it's not just, it's not, you need time to really get into yourself. And people, they're like, so I know how much money are you going to get? And I'm like, I don't care. I know that's not, but the money would go towards me being able to take time off to heal myself so that I don't have to worry about putting food on the table for my kids, or having enough money to travel back home and bring my kids back home where they should have been born in the first place. I'm getting mad now. Okay. Whew.
That's a lie.
They should have been born up north. They should have been born. I should have been adopted. Traditionally, why wasn't I given to an aunt? Why wasn't I given to? I had 22 aunts and aunts and uncles. Are you telling me that none of them were okay to raise me for the little time that my mother might have needed respite? Are you telling me that my 10 aunts and uncles on my father's side were incapable of taking care of me for the little time that they? No. So the money, yeah, I will use to travel. I will use, if I ever get any from this, it would be to get my brothers and sisters back up north. All of us. I would pay for all their tickets and just go and be together, because that's time that we lost, and that's how I would buy time back. I can't undo the past, but I dream of the day where all 7 of us are together, and all their cousins are together, like all our kids, because my sister has 6 kids. She has like a million grandkids already, and I have 3 kids, and my sister has 2 kids. My brother has a son. My other brother has 3 kids. So there's all these cousins all across Canada that should have been raised together, and they're not. And so money is not going to fix things. I mean, money is not it's not, money does not equal happiness, but money does equal time spent with family. Money equals time spent together, and that's how I see it. That's, and it's dangerous though, also, to have money thrown at us if we're not doing the healing, because a lot of us still struggle with addictions. And if you throw money at somebody, you go, here, heal your pain with this. And if you're into addictions, where do you think it's going to go? The most important thing is to speak. No matter what it is, no matter what it is, no matter what happened, no matter what has happened, talk, let it out, and have the courage. I took the stick, and it says courage on it. And it's the first one that I had planned to take something else, but apparently I meant was to have this, And courage spoke to me, because also it took a lot of courage for me to keep going every day and not give up. And so, it's important to speak and have courage to tell your truth, no matter what it is, because chances are someone out there has already lived the same thing and needs to hear your words.